So let's start today with the list functions, the inbuilt functions of list. Now, what do I mean by a function, first of all? And then, of course, the term inbuilt. Okay. The functions is a term which is being used any programming language, in any programming language. So this is a common term. Okay. It's not exclusive to Python. Inbuilt also and functions also, both the terms are available and used in any particular language. Now, what is the purpose or what exactly is a function? Okay. Function is like a small code. It's also a program. But why am I using the term small? Because really a small one, the purpose being that it should be able to do one single activity properly. Now, by one single activity, I would say like calculating maximum of a set of numbers, just calculating sum of a set of numbers, or maybe finding out the uh, average of a set of numbers, not combining some average max min into one code. I will not call that as a function. Why is that required? Because when I am doing a big program, a very, very big program, there if I have to write codes for summation, maximum, minimum, average, the trigonometric functions maybe, or something else, square root, cube root, then I would spend a lot of time into that. And also we would increase the lines of code. Now, generally, if you're making a application, you would need these kind of functions. Okay. I mean, these kind of working. Like somewhere you may need a some calculation sum, and somewhere you may need a calculation of average. Rather than not somewhere, you may need it multiple times. Okay. So if you need something multiple times to be done, rather than writing the code multiple times, okay, I would write the code once, give it a name, and then use it multiple times. I'm saying it again. I would write the code once, give it a name, and I would use it multiple times. Right? Like, for example, in Python, when I've been using that since a long time now, input function and print function, very commonly being used. In one program, I may use input 8 times and print 15 times in a big program, right? Now, if I had to write the inbuilt code for, or the code which is required to implement taking input from the user, which is involving a hardware working also, like hardware input from the keyboard and then processing that, putting into the CPU and etc. etc. If I have to write that code 8 times and the print code 15 times, amount of increase in the length of the code is too much, isn't it? And I know that input and print are so fundamental things that I'll be needing it in every program. Correct? So they said, okay, let's have them or the code of those things already ready in the compiler. And that's why I'm calling them inbuilt. I have not written the code for print. I have not written the code for input. I'm using it. I'm just calling it by writing input, brackets, and whatever is required into the bracket. Okay, so this is the thing what I'm trying to say. So all the functions and the name of the function, the usage, the way it is being used, and the number of functions available depends from language to language. Like C functions, C language, the functions it has, and Python language, the functions it has, it varies. Python has actually a huge library of functions. That is why Python has become so popular, because majority of the things you don't have to write the code, because they are all inbuilt. Use code. Make your code dynamic enough, make your code user friendly, make your code do a lot of things. But for these small things, use the ready-made code. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? So things which are required to be done repeatedly, rather than writing that code again and again in your program, I would use or I would create that code myself. If I'm creating that code myself, I would call it a user-defined function. If I'm using the inbuilt function for that, what the compiler has already given me, because he knows that you will be needing it majority times, then I would call those codes as inbuilt function, because it is inbuilt into the compiler. I'm not creating it myself. But if I'm making a program and there I find that certain things, I have to use it multiple times. तो बार बार वो 20 lines of that code only you're repeating in your program. It's a 1500 line का code जिसमें 15 lines of code is one particular activity which you're doing multiple times. Could be validation of the Aadhaar card number. Just I'm giving a random example. Validation of the Aadhaar. बार बार आपको आधार वेरीफाई करना पड़ रहा है, तो you are taking that number and verifying it with some backend source. So that particular code is being done in your program or in your functionality in your software multiple times. Okay, so rather than writing that code all those times, 15 times, 20 times, copy paste भी करो, but आपका memory तो use होता है ना, processing तो हो रही है. So rather than doing it, I would try to create that code as a function and use it multiple times. इससे number of lines reduce हो जाता है code का. Because of that, debugging becomes easier. जितना लंबा कोड है उसमें उतना debug करना, errors find out करना, errors को rectify करना becomes difficult. Number of variables used becomes more, then handling those variables become difficult. Yeah. So that is the basic purpose of a function in a language, and that is any language. It's not only Python. The beauty of the language Python is that it has given you inbuilt functions for majority of the work. Okay, so they said redundant and rudimentary job के लिए function use करो, आप अपना logic लगाओ for the better things to be done. More validations, more security checks, more things like that. Make your code more robust. Right? So concentrate on that. For those basic fundamental things, use the inbuilt functions. Am I clear with the point? Just show me your thumbs up so that I know that you've understood what I'm trying to say. I want to see the thumbs up, please. That what exactly is the meaning of a function and what is the utility of the function. Yes, for few people I can see that, but not for everybody. Yes, Abhilasha, Sara, Ethan, Chanchal, Yashvi, Ishita. Am I not clear with the point? If not, you can always speak up. I've not permanently muted you. I know you're responsible enough to speak sense. Do I make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, fine. I'm assuming that you all have understood that. Okay. So now we have to study about these functions. Now, do we do all the functions of the language? No, that's not possible. Like a few functions we would do so that you understand the utility of those, and then the repositories are available on the net. Whichever thing you need to do, you may check out whether इसका inbuilt function is available or not, and you may use it accordingly. तुम्हें अगर उसका working समझ में आ जाएगा, you will not have difficulty in doing it, in using reading about it and understanding किसको कैसे use करना. ठीक है? So that is what is the need. Like if you remember, we have used is upper, is lower, is digit. है ना? Now if you would think of कि is lower मुझे check करना है एक कोड में, whether the data entered is in the lower case or not, then that will be a good set of multiple lines of code wherein you have to go find out the ASCII value of every character, check it that पूरा lower case में है या नहीं. It's a long code, one by one, right? But then it is giving you an inbuilt function. तुम directly उस data को check कर सकते हो whether it's in lower case or upper case or digit or not, isn't it? So that makes my code so small, and I've utilized that also. I've done the job, right? So that is why we cannot do all the functions. That time also I said that string functions are many in number which are being used in Python. I am not able to do everything because rather string function is not in your syllabus also. I just wanted to introduce that concept, so I had done it. But the point is that if you understand how things work, you may just quickly get it from anywhere and utilize when you are making a project and you want to do something. Okay. Now, as of now, let's start with what needs to be done. What is there in our syllabus as per the Python functions, list functions. Now, every category of data structures has its own set of functions also. So when we study dictionary, we'll have its own set of functions. When we study pandas, we'll have its own set of functions. So similarly, for list, the applicable functions we do as per our syllabus. Okay. The functions are very simple. But you have to take care of the fact that whenever you are talking about a function, you're using a function, these brackets are fundamental. Okay, now we have learned square brackets will define a list. Whenever you see a data in Python in square brackets, you know it is a list. You've not studied it, but I'm telling you that half circle enclosure data, you know that it is a tuple. Okay. And later we'll study about dictionaries where we are going to enclose our data in curly braces, as we call it. So I know it's a dictionary. Now, when with a name without space, I'm using these half circle brackets anywhere, I know that it is a function. Okay. It has to be a function. Okay. Now, what is the purpose of this bracket? Correct. If you see the usage of this particular function here, you'll find that inside the bracket, I'm giving him some input. Like I'm telling him, len is my function name. And what I'm giving him is a list one. What is my list one? This is my list one, which I've created here. So what is the meaning? That take this list one and get me the length. So this comes as an input to my len function. Okay. These inputs are also called as parameters, arguments, input to a function, as and when, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So I'm putting that inside the bracket. Now, is it that I always put one argument or one parameter or one input? No. It can be blank at times. We'll do some functions where the brackets are blank. We'll do some functions where the bracket takes two input. We'll do some functions where the bracket takes three inputs. It depends upon the working of the function. Okay. So I need to give some input to my function. That input comes in those brackets which I'm talking about, and I'm saying that they are essential, and these are half circle brackets only, no other bracket you'll be using. Okay, half circle brackets. Inside the brackets, we put the inputs, and these inputs are called as input to the function, parameter of the function, arguments to the function, anything you want to call it. Okay, now as you see, the purpose of this function, the first one being length, is actually returns the length of the list pass. That is the number of elements in the list. As simple as that. Len, and it is going to give me the number of elements in the list. Now, the functions which I'm going to use, suppose there are 10 functions. Out of that, 5 are used in a particular format. So I'm giving you the first 5. That's not as per my PPT, but I'm giving it to you now like that. And the rest of the 5 are to be used in a little different format. उसको use करने का तरीका थोड़ा different है. ठीक है? The rules remain same, but the way of usage is little different. So I'm doing the first 5 which are of the same format. Let me show you that. So first of all, I create a list. Okay. This is my P. Now I'm doing it in the shell window of the your editor. Now in this case, whenever I'm going to use, I want display of the output, I may avoid using print. But if you're using in the script mode, I think by now you remember that you have to use the print function. So like if I want to display the content of P, I may just write P. It will display the content. If I want to check the type for P, what is the data type of P? It's a list. Okay. If I'm saying A is equal to 10 and I ask him, please check the data type of this data and tell me what exactly it is. What is the type of A? देखो अब type A एक function है. It's an inbuilt function and hence the color of that data is also changing. So it gives you that system in the editor that you would get to know that, okay, this is the inbuilt type for me, inbuilt data type, I mean, inbuilt value for me. Okay, so this is also a function, an inbuilt function applicable to all data types in Python. Purposes, it gives you the data type of that particular thing, whatever you're giving it. So if I ask him type of it, it will give me int. Okay, so I know my P is a list. Now P ka content display करने के लिए I did not use print. I just wrote that because I'm doing it on the shell. If you write with print, then also the output here is same. It is not compulsory to be used in the shell mode. It is to be used compulsorily in the script mode. Please remember the small things. Sometime in the worksheet also I write a few things like that, assuming I'm doing it on the shell. Okay. Fine. So I got the content of P. Now I want len. What is the length of my P? Let me show it to you with print also so that you understand what I'm trying to say. Why 7? It is 0, sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, one pointer which you note down in your notebook is that whenever you count the length of the content, whether it's a dictionary, whether it's a list, whether it's other containers of Python, your counting is always from 1. But the positions are always counted from 0. So index of 2 is 0. Hence, when I want to access the data 2, I would go for p square brackets 0. If I say p square bracket, this is the way I access elements. pi करके हम access कर रहे हैं loop में. So when I'm directly accessing it with the index value, if I'm saying p1, give me the first element, it is 3. So 1 for user is actually the second element of the list. Okay? So positions, indexes start from 0, but whenever I'm counting the elements, it is always counted from 1, not from 0. Please remember that. It creates a little confusion when you're doing the things on the paper. Okay? Now, what are the other functions which you're going to use it like the way you're using len? That is the function name, and in brackets, the input. There's one function which is called as max. So find the max of the list, maximum value of the list. Simple. Minimum value of the list. Sum of all the values of the list. Okay. As of now, I can think of these three. And len. And there's one more which is sort. I'll come to that later. Okay, so ये एक format है. Function name brackets में input. And here the input is list. Obviously, I will not give here max of A. Max of A क्या है? A is one element only. उसका maximum निकालने का there's no logic. So obviously, for max, for min, for sum, multiple inputs have been there, have to be there, and that is my list. Why list? Because it has multiple values. Okay, so max, min, sum, len, they are all used in this particular manner. Okay. Now this is my P. Now we start with the next format of using the functions. And that format is list name dot function name, and then in the brackets, single input, single argument, double input, double argument, whatever, or no arguments at all. We'll have to see that in which function we get this situation that no argument is required. Okay. Now, first of all, what is the meaning of append? Append is a term which is being used in every computer language. Computer language to add data at the end. Append का मतलब ही है कंप्यूटर टर्मिनोलॉजी की वजह से adding the data at the end. Always. Okay. So there could be a requirement. There could be two requirements of addition. Adding new elements. I add it at the end of the list, or I may want to add it somewhere in the middle. And that somewhere in the middle can be first position, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, any position. Okay. So the function to do that is a different one. With append, I'm only and only able to insert data at the end. Automatic है. I'm not telling him. Append का मतलब ही है कि end में insert करो. Okay. So P is my list, and I'm saying P dot append brackets. I want to append the data 15. Okay. No output. So append ka technically you're not getting any output, immediate output. But now I want to see the contents of P to confirm whether the data has been added or not. The data has been added at the end of the list. Okay. By the plus operator also, we had learned how to add elements to the list. Can anybody tell me the format of that? I want to add 30 to my list now. Does anybody remember कि प्रोग्राम में हमने अपेंड को बिना यूज करे कैसे एलिमेंट्स को ऐड करना सीखा है? ब्लैंक लिस्ट लिया और उसके अंदर एक एक करके लूप के थ्रू हमने डेटा ऐड किया. What was that format? A longer format. Append is of course easier. But what was that format? Anybody remembers? You can write down in the chat window. Yes, lab. It's concatenation. Can you tell me here what exactly will be the format of doing it here? The plus operator itself is called as the concatenation operator. I would say P is equal to P plus, and the data which I want to enter is supposedly, I don't remember what I said, 20 maybe, 20, and I put that in the square bracket. I think I've got another answer. Correct. Thanks, Lam. Okay. This was the way we have also learned that I can add elements at the end of the list. एक एक करके we had added like this in the loop. Okay, so you may use this. This is not using any function. This is using the plus operator, the concatenation operator, and this is using the inbuilt append function. Okay, if you find this difficult, go for this. No problem. Now you know this also. Okay, so this way, if I'm doing it, again, direct no output. If I try to print P, I have the data available with me. You will see that, right? So that's the meaning of append, adding elements at the end of the list. Now, there's one thing what happens in one more thing what happens with append is that if supposingly I give him a list of elements to be added, technically append should be used only for adding single element. For concatenation, Mang, it is not essential to make a new list. I can add a single element stored in a list format. You don't have to kind of see what other ways I could have done it. I could have taken D and stored 20 in that, another list created, right? And then I could have said P plus D. I could have done that. But then this is like another way of doing the same thing, but not by creating another variable. Directly I'm giving it to him. Okay? Concatenation may you may have two lists concatenated together. Same. That also can be done. और यहाँ पे हम उसी का एक changed version कर रहे हैं basically rather than storing this data in a variable and in the list format and then using that variable here, I'm directly using it. Okay? But I may have two lists, simple, like if I'm saying A is equal to 2, 3, 4 and B is equal to 7, 8, 1 and then I say C is equal to or maybe A is equal to B is equal to जिसमें भी you want to store it A plus B. That's also definitely can be done. So C will have all the contents of A as well as all the contents of B. If I would have done C is equal to B plus A, then पहले B का content आता उसके बाद A का content आता. Fine, am I clear with that? Mang, is it okay? Understood? Others also? Single value when I'm doing it like this. Where's that my expression? This one. And if I'm doing it like proper two lists separately done, then also I'm doing it like this. Okay? Chalo. Now one more thing we learn with append, that is if I'm giving him, my P is this. Now finally, I'm saying P dot append. And in the brackets of append, I give him a list of values. 65 or 67, 23. This is, please understand this format. ये half circle append का और उसके अंदर I'm telling you, please add this entire content. Okay. So if I do that, what happens is this goes and gets stored in the form of a sublist. List के अंदर list. You're learning this also as a new concept. This gets added as a sublist. Now, how do I refer to this sublist? Okay, this is called a sublist, nested list or a sublist. How do I refer to the content of this sublist? 0th index, first index, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 7, 8. And this whole data is 9. Okay? So when I say P of 9, the whole sublist is displayed. If I say P of -1, the whole sublist is displayed. But मुझे तो सिर्फ 23 चाहिए. When I want to print it or I want to use it or I want to access it. Okay. So when I want to access the contents of the sublist separately, then the format is first you go to the element so that I could go by -1 also, I could go by 9 also. And then within that, again, the positioning starts 0 and 1, -1 and -2. So whichever you want to access, but you use it with two separate square brackets. So I'm saying -1 and -1. So I was able to extract this. I could have done the same thing with -1 and 1 also because 23, agar left side say if I see the indexes, it is 1. I could have done it this way also. I can also do it as -1 is the ulta wala index reference. Let me go by the left side index reference. So ninth wale element mein pahuncho, so it reaches here. And within the ninth element, get me the first element. So you get 23. So all these methods are there to access the elements of my sublist. Okay. Now you would say, ma'am, if I give him multiple elements but without the square brackets, then what will happen? Try to give him a square bracket. So if you try to give him multiple elements without a square bracket, it is not accepting it. It's a error. Why? He says, I need exactly one argument. Because it was one list, it was considered as one element. That is why it was accepted. If you give him more than one single elements, that is not accepted. This is an error. Okay? Something again to be kept in mind because you see the error questions are also there in the paper. Fine? Okay, then what is the requirement? I mean, what is the solution to my problem that I want to add multiple data elements in one go, but I don't want it in the form of a sublist? Then what
मैम
option do I have?
एक और वेरिएबल में लिस्ट बना के उसको ऐड कर दो.
Correct. Very good. That is one option. Second option is another function is available for that. That's called as extend. Okay. Extend is, you can see, it's actually the same story. List 1 में ये है, list 2 में ये है. I want to put the elements of list 2 into list 1. If I want to do it by a function, I would use extend. If I want to do it by an operator, I would use plus. I hope I make this point clear. Right? So multiple elements to be added like single individual elements, always go for extend. Then my append is not functional. But single element to be added, append is the one which works, doesn't work with extend. Yes, Mang, it is similar to concatenation. It is rather than, you can say, plus is the concatenation operator. So if you do with an operator, it's plus. If you do it with a function, it is extend. Okay. Now, third function to add elements is my insert function. So append and extend both are adding data elements at the end of the list. अब हमेशा मुझे end में नहीं insert करना है, मुझे बीच में कहीं insert करना है. If this is my list, maybe I want to insert after 78. Okay, so insert gives me that option. What is that option? You have to tell him which position you want to insert and what data you want to insert. Simple. But the function is insert, neither append nor extend. Okay. So, but the position again will be as per the index. So 0 index, 1, 2, 3, 4. 5. Fifth index में मुझे add करना है मेरा नया data. Right? So I would say, let me just confirm whether my current P is exactly same as I'm thinking. Okay. 78 is at the fourth position. So at the fifth position, suppose I want to enter a name and let that be Ishita. That's my element. So P dot insert brackets. First, I'll give the position, go to the fifth position and insert what? Ishita. Okay, no direct output. If I now ask him to show me the content, I have the content displayed here. Okay, again position. So it
मैम
is
कोट्स में क्यों आ रहा है?
because it is a string. List के अंदर वो string का content quotes में ही दिखाता है.
Okay.
Okay. Like list के अंदर list का content list के form में ही दिखाता है. Similarly, string का content वो string के format में ही दिखाता है. Right? So that's the purpose of my insert position and the data. Data can be number or a list. So that goes as a sublist. All this you have to practice now. And a string also, whichever way you want to put it. Okay. So for whenever they say inserting elements into the list, you've got three functions, append, extend, insert. Depending upon your requirement, you would use any one of them. Now insertion is done. Let's move on to counting the occurrence of a value. Very simple. I want to count how many times 10 is appearing here in my list. या मुझे कुछ एक चीज count करना है, like some I've stored some names. I want to see the repetition of the names. How many times is this name repeating, or it's repeating or not. So if I kind of use that particular thing which I want to count, I'll say list name dot count 10 It'll tell me the number of times it is appearing. If it is not appearing at all, the count will be 0. So I may use it to check whether I have repeatedly entered the data in the big list. उसमें एक एक करके individually सारा list read करना पड़ेगा if I want to do it like that. But if I have the count function, I can easily quickly check whether I have inserted it once or twice or thrice, or I have not inserted, भूल गई मैं insert करना. All that can be done. Okay. At any point of time, I want to know the index of the first occurrence of the element in the list. Where is it occurring first? First time. Okay. So to know the position of an element, the existing function is index function. So index function will return you the position. Again, position as per the machine, not as per the user. Okay. So 20 is returning me 1, not 2. The user को अगर position दिखाना है, if he wants to know that I want to know where this data is existing, you will always increment the position by 1 and then show. Okay. Because this position, whatever is returning, is always 1 less because I'm starting with 0. But user को वो समझ नहीं आता है. So user will be giving me, will be shown the data +1 करके हमेशा. Okay. Now when you give something, this element doesn't exist. Now these are the questions which become confusing in the paper. When I'll say what is the output for this particular input, like there's a list and I give this output, is it 0? Is it error? Is it value error? Is it none of the following? Okay. So your answer should be 0. But if I'm trying to search for the index of a number and that number doesn't exist, it gives me an error. Okay. So it gives me a value error, not an index error, not a name error. It gives me a value error. 90 is not in the list. Okay. So index का purpose क्या है? Tries to get the position of the data existing in the list. And that to the first occurrence. अगर multiple times occur करेगा तो first occurrence का ही वो आपको index देगा. If you want to get the index positions, the positions of all the occurrences, then you have to run this particular story in a loop. एक एक करके उसको बढ़ाते जाओ. Next time from position 1 से लेके जाओ उसको into something. So you have to write a code for this. That is not being given to you in the existing inbuilt functions. That if I want to know the positions of all my occurrences of that element. ठीक है? Okay. Now let's come to deletion of the elements. And for deletion of the elements, because there is only less than 1 minute left to my 40-minute usage allowed for me for Zoom, I will stop my lesson here and I'm restarting Zoom. So join again. Okay. So we continue with the functions with the next session. Okay. Bye-bye.